Afternoon, how are you? Today is Tuesday, March 31st, 2026. Yesterday, Monday, March 30th, my mother had to go to the hospital. She was having pelvic pain actually on Sunday, and I felt as though she really didn't need to go. She, not bleeding, nothing, whatever. She just said it was just hurting. So instead of immediately going to the hospital, I tried to take care of her. On Monday morning, I called. My mother goes to a urogynecologist. That's a medical doctor that practices both urology and gynecology. It's a specialized practice. I called her doctor's office there, and I was like, could I speak to a nurse practitioner? Because my mom will not be able to see her urogynecologist until 2 months. She's very busy. So I spoke to the urogynecologist nurse practitioner, and they said, hey, you could really just go to urgent care and have this whole situation looked at. So I was getting my mom dressed so that we could go to urgent care, and my mom was like, I can't move. So I was like, okay, we're going to go to the hospital. So of course I had to call 911. And what's interesting, we had two women, first time I ever had two black women come and help me get my mother to the hospital. Well, this is an interesting thing. One of the women looked like she was literally about to give birth. She was, of course, 9 months pregnant. She was like, I'm due in 2 weeks. This woman was amazing. I was really concerned about her, but her partner, that worked well. But what's interesting, they actually needed help lifting my mom from her chair onto the stretcher to go into, the ambulance. So they called the local fire department to say, hey, and this is a service that is offered. Supposedly, well, no, I actually did see them as I was coming out. They refused to help these two EMTs. I don't know how they got my mom on this stretcher. They did, but I wanted to backtrack and just say, when the EMTs, these two black women, came to our door, they saw my sign that said, please wear N95. They were like, the notes from the 911 operator didn't say that we needed to wear a mask, but we want to wear one. So I showed them all of my masks, and they picked out the ones that they wanted. So hey, keep masks available, have a sign. Those are the first EMTs ever to acknowledge my sign. Thank you for my people, and thank you. So let's backtrack. Now we are in the ambulance. I live in Washington, D.C. It's high cherry blossom season. When I say I'm from D.C., I'm from D.C. because I live in the city. I don't live too far from the tidal basin. We were stuck in traffic for about an hour trying to get to the hospital. So we ended up not going to our regular hospitals because they're full. We ended up going to Georgetown. So Georgetown Hospital is a little further away from where we live. Finally get there, but when we actually got there at Georgetown and at Sibley, we usually are put like in a little room. There's like a little room that you could go into. Well, Georgetown did not have that little room. We were in a hallway, but we actually were assigned a letter. We were in the R section. Yay. Rated R. No. So we're in the R section, and why am I wearing a mask? I actually just came in from outside because I had to go to another building to get a package, and whenever I go into enclosed areas, I always wear a mask. This is N95. This is a brand that's no longer made, which is called Blocks, but the main thing is that with an N95, it goes over your head, you have to seal over your nose, your cheeks, and your chin. I gotta go back because this is a long story time, but all this needs to be said. All right, so we're in our section at George Washington Hospital, our section. Right across from our little room was the number 8. That was a room that actually had like a curtain and doors. So unfortunately, there's no privacy for anyone because everybody basically has their door open. But of course, hardly anybody. We saw no one wearing an N95. We did see a few surgical masks, but we did not see. It was only me and my mom, honestly. And I had a whole thing. Oh, And the EMTs who took us to the hospital, they actually continued to wear the mask when they were in the hospital. But the lady who was pregnant took it off. You know what? Do you, boo? Do you, boo? I just want people to be safe. Anyway, let's go back to being in the section. My mom, it's not, of course, she's not feeling well. So I told them the whole story. My mom has urogynecologist. I spoke to them. Urogynecologist, nurse practitioner said that we needed these three things. One, we needed a urine sample. Two, we needed to get her urine checked out, to do a blood test, and to do an x-ray. They listened to me. So what's interesting, I just want to share that across from us was a little child who was sick with the mother. Now, I didn't hear it. I definitely believe my mom. My mom said, that little kid said something about that dirty M-word. I was like, Mom, what did the child say? Dirty M-word. So my mom said the child didn't see us, but because the curtain, so we don't know they were looking at something on TV. But what's interesting, we realized that the mother actually knew that we heard that child say this, because my mom and I were openly talking about this. We didn't say the actual word, but I was like, that child said, what? I said, are you? So I said it loud enough so that the mother knew. We were very aware of what this child said. So of course, she's not going to come out and approach us or anything like that. But as she was leaving with her child and her other child and her husband, she says to me, I hope that your mother feels better. And I just looked at her. I was like, I really didn't want to acknowledge her, because when anyone says the M word, I don't acknowledge it. That's just, I'm not that. I don't entertain it. But okay, so that's one thing on top of all this with my mom. So let's quickly get to what else happened. So it took forever for a doctor to come. Finally, we had a resident come. Resident spoke to us. She was like, oh my goodness, you remind me of taking care of my grandmother. She actually started crying. And she was wearing a mask, not an N95, she was wearing a mask. So we started talking, telling her the issue. Then, me talking about COVID, all that. Despite all that, when she came back to us the second time, she didn't have on a mask. Y'all are some great actors. Okay, so let's go back to, so my mom had to have some blood taken. And I didn't realize, so they did, the regular taking blood, but then they use this other device. It's like a specialized needle. So you put a needle on top of a needle to get to the blood. I didn't know they left this thing in my mom's arm. So just remember that. I forgot. I didn't even see. I thought they took it out. My mom had to get an x-ray. So she gets a CT scan. My mom goes and gets the CT scan. We were told this. Oh, forgot to tell you. We had to also do the urine test. So they asked my mom, could she pee in a cup? She was like, yeah. So we get into the room. I was like, she can't do that. I was like, we need a hat. So there's this, and I'll put a photo here. It's the thing. It's a urine sample. You could collect a urine sample in this thing called a hat. So you put it on a commode. You sit and you pee, and the pee goes right into the hat. So it's basically like you're peeing into a little bucket almost. If you have to pee in a cup, ask for a hat. If you go to, trust me, it works wonders. So let's go back to getting the CT scan. So the tech, not the doctor, the tech says to my mom, oh, I see that you've had a hip replacement. My mom's never had a hip replacement. I was like, I've never had one. They're like, yes, you have. I see it right there. And my mom's like, I've never had a hip replacement. They never asked my mom, have you had surgery? With your femur, which my mom has had. Never. They kept on focusing on hip. And my mom and him, this man was determined to make my mom say, okay, I have had a hip replacement. But she didn't. She was like, I don't know what you're talking about. So the attending ER doctor, when we get back to our little space, because we were going to be discharged, he comes to me and he was like, yeah, I see that your mom has had a hip replacement. I was like, my mom has not had a hip replacement. My mom broke her femur, and her femur bone, which is your thigh. So you have your hip, and then right under your hip, you have your femur, which is your thigh bone. And I said, My mom has broken her femur, but she, from what I know, she no issues with her hip. And he was like, okay. It was weird because he said, well, it's like the same thing. I was like, but the femur is your thigh. It's not up near your pelvis. I don't know. So I spoke to the resident about this. She actually said I was correct. She was like, no, that's wrong. So I was just so confused because, the tech is first telling my mom, you've had a hip replacement. I know my mom has not had hip replacement. The attending daughter is like, oh, the femur and the hip are the same thing. No, it's not. So anyway, he basically said I needed, because I did tell him about my mom having the surgery on her femur. He said, call that doctor. She basically needs, to be looked at. So we get the discharge papers. We leave. We're in our cab. So I'm in the cab. Fortunately, I got a wheelchair accessible cab, which is very, very hard to get at 10 o'clock at night. I'm sorry, 9:38 at night, because at these times this is important. I get a call on my cell. Hi, this is a hospital. We just want you to know that we believe that your mom has an IV in her arm. I'm like, what? They're like, she has an IV. I was like, no, because I knew my mom wasn't given liquids. I knew that they took blood from her. So I was like, Mom. So I'm sitting in the front. I could barely reach back. I reached back. I felt it. And they're like, so I think they really wanted me to come back because I don't know how to take it out. So I was like, no, we'll come back. So I asked them, could they have a nurse come out to the car and take it out? They said, no problem. So we get to the car. We drive up. The nurse comes and she does. Sorry, I'm blanking out. She does come and she takes the piece out. But before she comes, I was like, this is medical negligence. This is medical malpractice. And I was like, by the way, my mom and I are lawyers, and this is so funny. The taxi cab driver was like, oh my God. He was like, her whole face changed. But I said, this is medical negligence, but I really appreciate you doing this. So I don't want to get them in trouble, but I just putting a warning. Don't do this. Don't do this ever again. So she takes the thing out. And then we get to, okay, I'm watching a commercial and they actually have two people wearing a mask. I'm so happy. Anyway, yay. I'm always distracted. So I'm trying to think back to what is my point in sharing this whole story about, basically, we're outside of the hospital, got the thing out. I took a picture just of the back. So no photos of anybody's faces. It's just showing, yeah, we really were here. This is what happened. So she took it out and, I said this and and I was like, no, thank you. So, so I'm speaking back with the cab driver and he was like, that was really wrong what they did. I was like, yeah. And I was like, I got to really figure out what I want to say and how I want to do it. And the more I talked to him, the more we talked back, I was like, so he actually said, well, I don't really want to make that part public, but our whole thing was that and this is in all honesty, we don't want anyone to lose their job. That's the main thing. We just want discipline and that, this doesn't happen again. And I'm very thankful for that nurse for calling me on the phone. So I've started just drafting a little letter to say thank you to this particular nurse for calling and letting us know. And they did follow through, but we need some type of checklist, not only from the nurse's side, but also, when you're leaving, I don't know what's the best way, like when you're being discharged. Shouldn't you be checking a patient to make sure everything's okay? Because this is not the first time this has happened. This has happened before. And we had to have the, so my mom had to be transferred home by an ambulance. And the techs there were like, they told the nurses in the ER then, they're like, she's still hooked up to her IV. She still has all this. And the nurse actually was angry, but we could tell the nurse was angry at themselves because they did not do this. Because the people who are coming to pick up my mom, they're not allowed to take off all that. That has to be on the hospital. So that was interesting to see this. So I'm back home. Everything's fine. I just want people to know, anyone who watches my videos and me talking, this is for me. Of course, I'm unloading, I'm venting, but I want you to learn a lesson from all of what I'm sharing, and to hopefully these are things that you can learn from. So if your loved one has a problem peeing into a cup, remember, a hat. If you have an issue, just like with what happened with us, specifically, let's say no one called you and told you about this. You actually need to get back to the ER and have them take that out. Don't try and do it at your home, because who knows, you might bleed out, okay? Don't do that. Another thing, if a tech says, that you've had this condition, even though you haven't, still listen, because if they had explained to me that even though it's not directly connected, you still should speak to the person who did the surgery because it's impacting her hip, I wouldn't have had a problem. It's just the fact that he was going back and forth with my mom, telling her that she had a hip replacement. And my mom has never had that. So thank you. And then too, of course, the racism that we experienced, but it is what it is. I appreciate you if you've listened to this very long video. Tales of being a caregiver. I appreciate you, and have a great day. Bye.